Hello lovelies, welcome to NARC Free Formula. My name is Freedom, thank you for joining me. Today's episode is about whether or not your partner is cheating on you and signs to watch out for. Now, just quickly, we know that with the narcissist and sociopath and psychopath, things are a little bit different from the usual situation. So in my previous video about the 6 signs that you cannot rely on to see if the narcissist is cheating, I made note that, in a normal relationship, there are certain things that you can kind of check to see whether or not there's been a change in behavior. But with the narcissist, because their behavior is so confusing at the best of times, and we are so gaslit and lied to and manipulated at the best of times, it's so very hard to actually be able to figure out anything, let alone something as serious as whether or not you're being cheated on. So there are a whole stack of signs that you can look out for. But there's a couple of things I need to say before I run through this. One is this. One, your situation might display each and every one of these signs, and it still may not mean that you're being cheated on. And by the same token, your situation may not have any of these signs, and yet you may still be being cheated on. So it's not 100% foolproof or conclusive. And as I've said before, narcissists, psychopaths and sociopaths and other predators and abusers are usually pretty good with the manipulation and the lying. Okay, they know how to sell a lie. They know exactly what to say to make you believe it and to make you back down when you've confronted them with the truth. So it's really important that you, before you even start worrying about this stuff, thinking about this stuff, checking out this stuff, there's some really important things. One, you need to be prepared for the outcome, because there is no point you going into battle, you driving yourself crazy, you finding out this information if you're not going to do anything with it. And what I mean by that is, if you're just going to end up staying and being resigned to the fact that, your situation is less than perfect, maybe being unaware may be better than, being aware of what he's doing. The other thing is, do you really want to know? Are you really ready for that? Because what I find is a lot of people, they ask the question, say, for example, is he cheating? They ask and, they tell the story and they'll explain the situation to someone, and that person says, yeah, well, those signs and signals, yeah, that does kind of sound like he's cheating. But that wasn't the answer that they wanted. So they'll go and ask another person, and they'll keep on asking, and they'll get on, the internet, and they'll Google it or whatever. But the thing is, if you're asking the question, you need to be ready to hear the answer. Instead of this kind of selective, I'll just keep asking the question until someone tells me what I want to hear. That's not really healthy by any stretch of the imagination. So let's get down to it, lovelies. So if you do suspect, I would actually say the most important thing you can do is trust your own self and your own instincts and your own higher self. As I mentioned in previous videos, our higher self is like our astral self or our spiritual self. So we have all of our senses, taste, sight, hearing, etc. And then we have, the higher self, which kind of encompasses everything. So all the things you think you do not know, you actually do know. Your higher self does actually have access to this information. So when you communicate with him, what you may not be even aware of, your higher self is so hyper alert. It pays signs to everything, every kind of mannerism, inflection, tone of voice, action, absence of action, silence. I mean, it literally, your higher self is like your sixth sense. It's like your sixth sense on steroids. It observes everything, and it has access to information that you don't have access to. So if you actually just ask yourself, you might already know the answer. What usually happens is when people say, all right, well, I'll ask myself, is he cheating on me? And then they get the yes straight away. They hear it, yes, in their head. And then they go, oh, yes, but, I just don't know. The thing is, you do know, but you don't trust yourself. And that's why you're seeking external validation from other people. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, the problem with looking for evidence to back up what you know is that no matter what evidence you find against a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath, they are going to be able to twist it and turn it and make it that they are the victim, that you've been snooping. Like, you've actually gone through his phone and you've gone through his room, and how dare you? I mean, what a betrayal of his privacy and trust. I mean, that's the kind of crap you're going to have to put up with when you actually do confront him, if you confront him. I would advise against confronting the narcissist. To be perfectly honest, I think that it's dangerous. I think that if you suspect it, if you think that it's enough, that you want to leave, I would just get that plan of action in place and just do it. Don't confront him. Don't talk about it. Don't give him the option to rationalize it. Don't give him the option to magic it away, because he will, and because you will want it to go away, you will believe the lie. All right, so let's go down to, if you still want to find out if he's cheating, these are the kind of things that you should watch out for. So 1, how's your sex life? Are there changes in your sex life? Because sometimes when they are cheating, sometimes they will actually bring more sex home. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes it'll be the opposite. So, it might be an increase in sex, might be a decrease in sex, might be different moves, things that you didn't think of, stuff that he's never done before. So that's the kind of stuff to be aware of. All right, so this is another huge narcissistic trick. So starting out arguments. Are they starting fights? So they can be where they've got to be. So just say they've got, half an hour. She's got half an hour off work. They've got to meet her down the side of town. They've got to be there at a certain time. So they're not going to start arguing just before that. They're going to play it cool, because this is what narcissists do. So they'll start the fight a few days before. They'll warm you up to the situation. So by the time the argument occurs, when they walk out the door, you're going to be glad they've walked out the door. You're going to actually be thinking to yourself, oh, thank God he's gone now. I can just have some time to myself. You are not going to be thinking to run after him or check up on him. And this is when he is going to go where he was planning all along, which is to go and meet the new supplier. So definitely keep an eye on that. Because we get so caught up in the argument because we think the argument is about what we're actually discussing. But it's not. Arguing is just a weapon for the narcissist. It's just a tool to get what they want, to put you in a situation where, as I said, where, they can storm out and you won't chase after them. So there's that. If they're accusing you of cheating, as always, with a narcissist, they project. So anything that they've got going on inside them, they will project onto you. So when they're lying, they'll accuse you of lying. When they're cheating, they'll accuse you of cheating, because they just can't have that. They can't associate themselves with that yuckness, badness, wrongness. They've got to put it out on you and hate it on you. This is part of the object constancy stuff, you know, their inability to, you know, to be able to be more than one thing at a time. So they're either the good guy or the bad guy. There's no grey with the narcissist. You know, they're either being the hero or the bad guy. And if they put themselves down, or you put them down, or anyone kind of says anything bad about them, they can't take it on. Or if they do take it on, they will revert to being the bad guy in their mind. And that's when the deconstruction happens, which is why they can't do it. So if they're accusing you of cheating, then that is probably what they're doing. All right, so if you're noticing things like changes in their appearance, you know, they're trying to impress someone. So if they're, you know, wearing their hair differently, you know, wearing nice clothes, dressing differently. I remember in hindsight, it's kind of funny, hindsight's such a bitch, isn't it? But I remember in hindsight one particular evening when my husband went out for a boys' night with some friends at our property that I had at the time, you know, out to have a campfire. And I actually remember at the time thinking, he's dressed really different. I've never seen those clothes. That's quite unusual. And it really just kind of stuck with me. Now, at the time, I was still, you know, ignorant and naive and thought that, you know, my husband would never cheat on me. Now, it is so obvious that there was no boys' night. What? Boys' night? That's just ludicrous that I even accepted that. You know, but more to the point, I think it's because we were arguing and I just kind of wanted some time to myself. So well played, Narky. Anyhow, so off he goes in his, you know, his unusual clothes to have this boys' night. And never, as I said, I never really thought anything of it until, you know, after the situationship ended and my reality, my actual reality, knocked my false reality out of place, and I realized what I was dealing with. So if they're wearing different clothes, if they're putting on different cologne, you know, that kind of thing, that, pay attention to that. So if they're talking about places, restaurants, things that, you know, you've never been to, right? Because sometimes, you know, narcs accidentally tell on themselves. They don't mean to, but, you know, because they like to be better than everyone else, they like to show off, you know, they might accidentally mention something about, you know, this restaurant, for example, and then realize, oh crap, I didn't take her to the restaurant, you know. But they'll always think up a lie. They'll think it up quick. But if you're listening to what they're saying, pay attention. Okay. If they are leaving the house without inviting you, you know, that's another thing that you need to consider, you know, why they don't want you to go with them. So suspicious behavior with the phone. So we know that they're suspicious with their phones, full stop, but any more than normal, we'll put it that way. So excessive. So for example, if you accidentally, you know, if you walk in on them when they're on the phone and they hang up quickly, or if they take phone calls but they have to take them out of the room, that kind of thing, highly suspicious behavior. Okay, if their phone is often on airplane mode or switched off, because narcs play phone games, it's hard to tell with that one, but just, you know, be mindful of it. And if they are being more snappy and moody, more so than normal. If they're emotionally kind of distant, more so than normal, once again. Working longer hours or taking work trips. Now, I, like most normal people in normal relationships, never thought to check up on whether or not my husband was at work, the hours that he says he was at work, you know, because he got paid for being at work, because he had sick days and what have you. I never thought to question that. Never. But, you know, once again, I accidentally came across something that had been sent out from work. My husband had a really good work ethic. He always used to say, you know, never miss a day of work, always really prided himself on his work ethic, which is kind of ironic now because with the new supply, he's a bum and he literally doesn't work a day. So he prided himself on his work ethic. And then I found this slip, his pay slip that came out, and there were all these sick days that he'd had. All of these sick days. You know, he'd taken the 2 weeks or whatever it was in sick days, but there was quite a few dates that I just couldn't place where he'd been and what he'd been doing. And because, you know, I was so busy getting through the day, I didn't need another argument about where he was 3 months ago. So I just kind of left it, you know, as we do. More often than not, they get away with all this stuff because we're just so overwhelmed with living and breathing in a battle zone. If I'd had more energy at the time, maybe I would have, you know, pressed and found out what had been actually going on. But at the time, it was just too much. But anyhow, so keep an eye on that. Where is he when he says he's at work? Is he actually at work? This is another good one, when they ask for more space. So they either ask for it or they create it. So they create fights, they do things so that they can break up. So when you get back together, they can say, if you ever get caught, they can say, oh yeah, well that was when we were broken up. You know, or that was when you told me that you didn't want to be with me anymore. You didn't love me and you didn't want to be with me anymore. So they'll always remember the things that you say, even if you say them in the heat of an argument, because they use that stuff against us. So they hang on to those little things, they remember those things, and they will use them against us in the future. So this is another big one. When they're asking you about your movements, so where are you going to be? What are you doing on Thursday morning? Are you going to be around? Suspicious kind of things like that. Little things, you know, finding out where you are. Now, the reason they're trying to find out where you are is because they want to make sure you're nowhere near where they're going to be when they're doing their cheating or whatever it is that they're doing. Right? So if they are asking more, narcissists kind of ask this stuff a lot anyhow, because they always want to know what you're doing. But it is in part because they want to feel like no one's watching them. They don't want to get caught out. Because you've got to remember, these guys are the type that have us under surveillance. So they think that you can do it too. Right? So this is why they ask, where are you going to be? What are you doing? They like to know that, that they know exactly where you are at any point in the day. And they also will use their flying monkeys to kind of keep an eye on you and the general situation. So if, for example, like in my situation with my ex, who worked on the council, for God's sake, you know how many council workers there are all littered throughout the town. You know, he would kind of use them to keep an eye on me as well. Just subtle things, you know, oh, so-and-so said that he saw you when you were driving past there at 3 o'clock, you know. Oh, what were you doing there? Yeah, John, I saw you, rah, rah. So just this, you know, implied, you know, the kind of message is, you know, I know where you are at all times. And that's fine because, you know, at the time I was thinking, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so that's absolutely fine. But what I didn't realize was what it was actually saying was, you know, I'm keeping an eye on you, right, so I can be one step ahead of you. That's really what was going on. He just wanted to be one step ahead, so he made sure he knew where I was so that I wouldn't accidentally find out where he was. So if they're asking you what you're doing, then that's probably what they're up to. All right, lovelies. As I said, there's quite a few different things that you're going to find, especially online, about this kind of thing. But as I said, so many of them do not apply and do not work in the situation with the narcissist. But I think that these kind of, you know, these kind of really obvious things, I mean, the starting the fights, that's a really big one. And as I said, just remember, they can do that, you know, they can start the fight days ahead of time to be where they need to be. I mean, that's the kind of really manipulative stuff that they do. Because we are normal and we are healthy individuals, we can't even begin to fathom that someone would be like that. But believe me when I say it is true. I know not only from my first-hand experience, but from thousands of other women's stories also. So these blokes definitely will start an argument so they can be where they need to be at a certain time. And that's all there is to it. Meanwhile, you're at home, you know, you've just been arguing, and now you're thinking about him, and you're thinking about what's going on, and you know, you're focusing on the relationship, and you're upset, not even realizing he's forgotten about it the second he walked out the door. The second he walked out the door, he was already getting that phone out and dialing the number, or you know, whatever, just planning his next move. Forgotten about you, because remember, out of mind, out of sight. Once again, with the object constancy thing, you know, this is what this arrested development with them is about. You know, so they kind of have this, it's almost like a toddler, you know, so when they don't see you, you don't exist. So as soon as he stops thinking about you, he's forgotten about you at home, what you're doing. He's gone straight into thinking about where he's going, the new supply that he's going to be sourcing. You know, that's where his head is at. All right, lovelies, I think that's it for now. But as I mentioned at the beginning, please think about it. Really, really think it through. If you're still in the situation and you think that you're being cheated on, you know, if that's a deal breaker for you, then, you know, really think, what's it going to take for you to actually just know in your heart of hearts that what you're suspecting is true? I mean, do you actually have to catch him in the act? Is that what's going to, you know, what it's going to take? You know, or is just knowing going to be enough? Because you do know. Ask yourself, take some deep breaths, get yourself centered, relaxed, focus, and ask yourself the question. Let it be a yes or no answer, but ask a straight question and listen to that voice in your head, because it will tell you the answer that you need. All right, lovelies, thank you for watching, and yes, if you want to have a one-on-one consult about this or any other topic, the details will be in the description box. And what else? I think that's about it. All right, lovelies, thanks, bye.